First, we would like to thank you for choosing such a rewarding profession, and we'd like to welcome you to our session today on becoming an equity-minded educator. I'm Angie Wood from Cabarrus County Schools. I started my career as a high school math teacher before moving into school leadership and then to human resources. My colleague, Megan, will introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Megan McNutt. I've been working at Cabarrus County Schools for 21 years now. I was a teacher for 18 years before joining Human Resources, and we're excited to be here with you today.
Throughout our session today, we will be referring to both this PowerPoint as well as the link in this first slide. Please take a moment and pull up the link in a new window. Being a beginning teacher has its challenges, so it's important to always remind yourself of why you got into this profession to begin with. You can do this and you will make a positive impact on the lives of your students. Today, we will cover concepts, principles, and procedures of discussing culturally responsive strategies to help you meet the needs of your students. We hope you will apply this to your classroom by leading with strategies to engage all of your students. We will first look at how to deeply reflect to see your own implicit bias. We will also look at ways to get to know your students and understand them to build stronger relationships. We will share strategies to grab the students' attention so that you can more deeply help them learn their content.
So our first section we're going to look at today is about our own implicit bias. We all bring our culture everywhere with us. The definition of culture includes race, religion, social group, values, goals, social practices, knowledge, and experience. It also relates to the time and place. These things make us all unique. We may share a lot of similarities with a certain group, but when we move groups, it's a different set of similarities. For example, the culture you share with your family is probably different than the culture you share with your group of best friends. There are a lot of cultures that you have assimilated to. Think of your college culture, your family, your town, your friends. That's what makes us all so different and exciting about getting to know each other and new people. But we have to remember that kids are the same way, and we ask them to assimilate to our classroom culture. And our classroom culture may be very different to anything they've experienced before. Think about your own culture. In a minute, pause the video, go to the first link on our site where under implicit bias, and it's labeled your culture, and join our Jamboard. Start a new sticky note and write on it things that add to your culture. Then size it small and place it near your place of birth. Then zoom in and check out everyone else's. Once you're done exploring, come back to our video. What did you learn about yourself and other people participating in this video? Can you see that each of our classrooms will be very different? As we have grown, our brain has learned the world by sorting and categorizing it. You may have heard of Jean Piaget in your university classes. He is the one that created a theory of cognitive development that suggests that we use mental models to understand. We do this unconsciously, and we attribute certain characteristics to all of a particular group. We all want to believe we are above this, but the reality is we all do it. It's important to understand that implicit bias is not the same thing as racism, although they are related. Once you become aware of your unconscious social biases, you can take an active role in overcoming them. Pause the video, take some time to check out our second link under the implicit bias section. Explore as many of the choices as you want. Be open to the results and do some deep reflection on what you need to make yourself aware of, and then come back to the video. Hopefully that exercise was a good reflection for you. Think about what you need to be careful of in the classroom. Teachers that are amazing understand that when students behave in a certain way, the way they answer questions, their body language, all of the ways that they react to you are all ways they have learned in their time and place in society. Sometimes what we view as disrespectful is actually a misunderstanding between cultural expectations. How you react sets up the culture of your room. If you want students to assimilate, they have to feel safe and understand your expectations. Otherwise, the relationship suffers and the behavior in the classroom suffers, which affects the achievement of the students and yourself. Zaretta Hammond has written a book called Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain. It takes a great look at implicit bias. But more importantly, consider something called deficit thinking. If we think a student won't be good at something because of who they are, then we create a story in our heads that is unconsciously acted out in the classroom, and the students learn what we think, and they take on your thoughts too. For example, Zaretta says that often people think that students who do not natively speak English are unable to participate in higher level thinking skills. But just because a student doesn't understand a word doesn't mean they cannot use tools to help them be successful. The same goes for native language speakers. 5-year-old children from lower economic backgrounds often have 2 years less of language development when they enter kindergarten. It doesn't mean they are not as intelligent, they just haven't had the exposure to a wide variety of language. It's our job as teachers to look for those things that the students are excelling in and celebrate them. That will increase their confidence and they will stop seeing what they cannot do, and so will you. Most of our job consists of helping our students understand how not to give up. Have you heard that FAIL can stand for first attempt in learning? Think about all the things you have learned by figuring out what doesn't work. We have to help our students work at a productive struggle level. We need to give them work that isn't too hard and isn't too easy. In both of these cases, our brain isn't growing, but there's a magical level when we can see the possibility that we could figure out something, and that is where we learn and where the exciting aha moments come from. The ones that build excitement in both the student and the teacher, the ones that make you both excited about coming back the next day. One of the keys to providing a tool for any student to be able to work at this level is to do word studies. We all come from different words. I joke that I'm bilingual, being from Britain and living in the United States. Yes, it's still English, but there's a lot of different words. The same is for our students, and slang is changing all the time. Each of our cultures has different words and meanings, whether we grew up in New York, North Carolina, or Italy. To be college ready, students have to be able to read 250 words per minute. Word studies will help bring understanding to the vocabulary students encounter. This enables them to work in their content area at a productive struggle level. In order to teach our students and differentiate from this way, you really have to get to know each of them.
Building positive relationships with your students is the key to success. Rita Pearson once said, "Kids don't learn from people they don't like." Over my 12 years of teaching math, my most challenging students often became my favorite students. One student craved attention and was disruptive. Another student had experienced dramatic trauma in his life. Another student refused to even lift a pencil. In time, each of these students gradually improved academically and behaviorally. That really didn't have anything to do with math. It happened because they knew I cared about them and wanted them to be successful. I looked for ways to engage the student who craved attention, offered after-school tutoring, and the student who had experienced trauma always attended because home was not a safe place. And day in and day out, I encouraged the student who refused to lift a pencil. And years later, he shared that I was his favorite teacher because I was the only one that year who didn't give up on him. Over time, all teachers will have similar stories to share. You may have already experienced these success stories as a beginning teacher. So how can we strategically ensure that we're building positive relationships with all of our students? Now let's take a look at your own classroom from an outside perspective. Think about your materials, rules, interactions, and student empowerment. The first step to building a strong relationship with your students is to get to know them. What can you give them on the first day or at open house to start to get to know them? Use some of the ideas we have linked to our site to start researching things you can do to get a well-rounded look at your students. Then take a look at your plans. Are you using a variety of materials written by a variety of people? How can you incorporate students' voice into your plans and behavioral expectations? You're about to start a new culture with these students. What will it be like? Have you considered doing a classroom contract? This can be a powerful way to help your students learn about the expectations they have for each other. Make sure they sign it and you post it so that you can reference it. Check out the procedure for making one linked in this section of your website. This can be the first step in empowering your students to take ownership of their learning. But what else will you incorporate to help them? Be prepared to think about how you might learn their opinions, how you might be able to laugh with them at your own mistakes so they learn to laugh at themselves, How will you make sure one student doesn't dominate every conversation? How will the students get to know you? Pause the video and check out the resources. Think about the resources that you can use as you embark on your new year of teaching. Write yourself a note about things you want to use in the future.
After thinking about yourself and getting to know your students, you have to be able to grab their attention. Getting your students' attention is the single most important thing you will need to do. If they aren't paying attention, they cannot learn. Getting to know your students will help you bring in connections that they will be interested in. Zaretta Hammond also says to think about our traditional ways of learning. Many of our cultures have oral traditions, so making learning social, fun, and connected to a story can help them learn and remember information. There are many ways to gamify the lessons. Digitally, there are all kinds of things like Kahoot or Nearpod, etc. There are also many hands-on ways. You could create a game of vocabulary word cards. You could have the students create a game about parts of the content or unit and then have them play each other's games. This could be done either as a jigsaw activity, where they each make a game about different parts of the information of the unit, or you could do it as a review of the whole unit at the end. Lately, there has been a big increase in ideas to get students interacting with each other. Some great ones are project-based learning ideas and escape rooms. Project-based learning, or PBLs, is a great way to get groups to work together to connect content to a real-life problem. There are all kinds of ideas out there. Using escape rooms can also be fun. If your school has the tools, you can do one for real. If not, you can create your own digital one. Both PBLs and escape or breakout rooms rely on an underlying story, so it makes learning social and connected for better remembering. Pause the video and check out the resources we have posted about escape rooms and PBLs. Spend some time learning and let your brain create some ideas. Share some of them on page 2 of the Jamboard. Then look at each other's ideas too and see if you can take a few more with you. Then rejoin us here.
We hope that you now have a better understanding of your own implicit bias, which will help you build stronger relationships with your students and make a lasting impact on your future. We'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to reach out to us in the future if you have any questions or would like to share a story about your own teaching. You can find our contact information on this slide. We'd also like to give credit where credit is due, and we encourage you to check out the links that are on this slide. As Ben Franklin once said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." We empower you to get to know your students and involve them in their own learning process. We've enjoyed our time with you today and look forward to the possibility of meeting you in person in the future.